You know, it's reminding ourselves that, yes, we didn't get this today. What can we do in next time that'll get it better? Maybe you don't put such pressure on yourself. So instead of like a big one is going to the gym every day or, things like that, it's okay. How about next time you just go to the gym? You just go there. Tomorrow, you're just going to go to the gym.
Don't even have to work out.
Don't work out.
Yep.
Don't do anything. Just go.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys? Let me unmute everybody in here. They're having a grand old time. Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi there.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. So tonight we are going to talk about failure. For anybody who doesn't know or anybody who's new, this is AOCast. The focus of this podcast is on mental health, video games, the whole shebang, kind of how it all intertwines, live streaming. We had a bunch of different topics. A lot of it has to do with mental health. So tonight we are going to talk about failure with a couple of fantastic people that we've gotten to know in this community over the last, 6 months, something like that. The wonderful Zandolza, who I think should always come first in any mention. No offense, Horton. And then
I'm smiling,
It's
can
fair.
you tell?
Yep. And then the great HortonHustle as well. And then obviously, as always, we have the fabulous Stacy on the other end.
Hi there.
So we're gonna
And
do
my
some.
cat Arlo.
We're gonna do some introductions in just a moment. I want to do some quick housekeeping before we do anything else, though. There are a few things that I want to make sure that everybody understands. First of all, this is a safe space, so please make sure that you keep your comments to more respectable level. Typically, you can make a bunch of rude and crude comments in this channel and even probably over in Horton's channel. Let's try to limit that as much as we can, just to kind of keep it a little more respectable, given the topic and the whole premise of the podcast. Secondly, we are accepting donations as usual for To Write Love on Her Arms. This is a very special occasion, though, because this is their promotion over the next month or so for World Suicide Prevention Day, which is, I believe, the 12th of this month. Or sorry, of next month. So please, the 10th. Thank you, Warrior. So if you have the ability to do it, please donate. Their goal is $50,000. My goal is $500. I will actually be donating in a little bit as well. So please donate if you can. No pressure if you can't. All right, let's go ahead and do some introductions here. My name is AyegentOrange. I am the host, so I will go first. I have been streaming since I believe December of last year. I absolutely love streaming. I do 3 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 p.m. right now until about 11:30 at night. I am a variety streamer, so I do a bunch of different things. Every Wednesday night, you'll actually see my lovely significant other over here and I playing video games together. Lately, we've actually been playing a lot of Remnant, which is a fantastic game. If you guys haven't played it, definitely check it out. We played Portal a couple weeks ago, and that was an absolute blast. Yeah, so that's me. So Stacy, if you want to go next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy. I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been practicing several years now. I work at a practice. I have my own practice. I also teach counselors how to take care of themselves so they can take better care of you. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Horton, you're next.
I'm me. I'm a streamer. I do that, and here to support everybody. I think Agent Orange is amazing. So I want to, and what he's standing for and doing today is awesome. And yeah.
It's all on you.
Yeah.
Well, then, I am Horton's behind-the-scenes B word. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm her behind-the-scenes bitch. I make all the things run for her and design a lot of the stuff for her channel. However, I'm new to it. I've figured quite a bit out, but I've still got a lot to learn. I am the spouse of a streamer, so Warrior and me are kindred spirits. Agent Orange's wife. She is a wonderful woman. Uh, I honestly support what Agent Orange does on his channel, where he's trying to help the community, and I really am glad to be here and be able to share many of my experiences that might help someone else.
I appreciate that. Yes, up. All right.
That's why you can see my nose. It's brown.
That's true. That's very true. All right. So again, big topic. I think this is something that I know Stacey and you and I have talked about a lot. We've talked on the podcast before how, you know, her and I worked together in the past. So our job was basically like customer service at a mall, and so we would have many hours of being able to just sit there and talk, especially on slow days. So we'd have an 8-hour shift where her and I would just banter back and forth. She's actually well, I can't say one of the reasons. She is the reason that I know how to debate with people. Because she would correct me on everything. It was fantastic. So, but one of the big topics that we would hit on pretty often was the idea of failure and why it's important to fail. What does failure actually mean? So I think this will be a good topic for me to be able to reach out to the community, reach out to you guys, and really get everybody's take on what failure means to them and why it's important to fail. Because there's this whole idea out there that, well, you know, God forbid you failed. But what people don't realize that failure leads to success. As long as you take that failure and you learn from it, then you will succeed. I know we
Absolutely.
Yep.
Warrior and I actually watched, and Stacey, I was talking to you about this earlier. Warrior and I watched the Current War, which is a movie on Hulu, I think it is. It's about Tesla, Westinghouse, and what's his name? It's on Vudu, and Edison, and they're kind of what they went through in order to get the lighting to the world, to get electricity and the light bulb and everything else out to the world. So I was looking at a bunch of different quotes for people who have failed and who have succeeded and all these things, and one of the things that came across my research was Edison, and the fact that he apparently he failed over 1,000 times before actually succeeding in the light bulb, which I knew he had failed a lot because we have what's called Greenfield Village in this area. So they have an area dedicated to him and kind of what he's done and his inventions and all that. But he failed over 1,000 times, and one of his big things was saying, "I did not fail. The light bulb had 1,000 steps before it became a success." So I think that takes us into kind of what it means to actually succeed and what it means to fail, because you have to be able to take those failures and turn it into something that will grow you into a better person and a better product, whatever that end product ends up.
Yeah, I remember doing a book report on him when I was a kid, and that was the title. I think of the book report was I did not discover the light bulb. I discovered 1,000 ways not to make the light bulb.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And that I love that entire idea, because we tend to focus too much on, well, I failed at doing X. I didn't succeed. Okay, well, you did succeed. You succeeded by failing. Because if you take that failure and you turn it into, okay, well, what did I learn? I mentioned on my stream, and I think I mentioned here as well, that I'm working on getting a master's degree in project management. And one of the things that we do is at the very end of a project is you are supposed to, it's basically you close the project. And part of closing the project is to evaluate what you've done, what worked and what didn't. And by evaluating that, you learn where you failed. You learn what you did wrong and where you need to change for the future. And then from there, once that next project comes along that's similar to that, or even if it's not similar and it's just something that you're wanting to, learn from, then you don't repeat that same mistake and you learn more and more as you go. Stacey, did you figure it out?
I did.
Perfect. All right. Excellent.
I'm here now.
Okay, good. Are you sure?
Because you weren't
Are
before.
Sure?
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's because of the Taco Bell Pepsi.
Oh yeah.
Pure
Let's
mention
talk about
Oh
everything.
yeah.
So
That's why there's an age limit on it.
right.
And clearly that's not mine.
Right. As a quick aside, just so you guys know, when there are donations, subs, follows, anything like that, during the podcast at least, we will not be making mention of that. So if you don't hear anything from myself, Stacey, or anybody else, I will try to recognize it in chat. If I don't get a chance to do it, Warrior will be recognizing it in chat as well. So just take her as like an extension of me of saying thank you for whatever it ends up being.
I agree. I second that.
So that's my job, so yell at me. Yeah. So feel free to yell at her if you don't get a recognition for it. Why are we yelling? So yeah, I want to start this conversation off and really talking. Stacey, I'll start with you. I know this might be a little bit more of a difficult question, I guess, depending. I mean, I'm trying to think of something to say. But what does failure mean to you? I know you like the difficult questions, so this will actually be perfect for you. But what does failure mean to you?
Me personally?
You personally, yeah.
Failure to me means not achieving whatever it was your end goal was and not respecting the fact that you tried. And that's just failure, period, at the end, done. Now there's variations to that, of course, difficult, right? Because you know me, there's layers to everything. When you succeed at failing, that's when you're acknowledging, oh, hey, I tried this and I didn't succeed. Therefore, sure, it's a failure, but it's also a learning opportunity. And you know how I like to put my spin on words. So failure to me is a little bit more concrete if we're going to look at it that way. It's, failing, it's not achieving what your goal was, right? But at the same time, if you succeed at failure, that means you've been able to recognize that, hey, I didn't reach my goal, but I tried. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep it short because I could actually go on for several minutes.
Hey, that's what that makes good content. Okay. So, but honestly, like for any of you, don't feel that you have to keep it short. I mean, this is I want that kind of a conversation with this because I think this is that important of a topic. And I mean, Stacey, you guys have been around, for the last couple podcasts, and Stacey, you and I have been talking about it. This is not scripted. We have a basic outline that maybe we'll get to. But if we end up spending the entire time and talking about what it means to fail for us, then I'm good with that. I'm very happy with that. So if you have more to say, please feel free to say it.
Okay, then I'm going to add on.
Okay.
All
right, perfect.
All righty. No, so failure is, it's a matter of making an attempt to do something that you dream of, right? That you want to do, that you think you're capable of doing. Maybe you're trying to prove yes to someone when they say no to you, and you're like, oh, let me show you how and why, right? But with failure, there comes a lot of Randy, you and I were talking about this earlier. Like I wanted to bring up behaviors. So I'm trying not to spin that in just yet because I'm like, I should have wait. But failing means you tried. Failing means you put yourself out there. Failing means you believed in yourself enough to say, hey, I can try this, I can do this. And sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't. But if you pick yourself back up and you learn and you grow from it, that's all right. And failure can also be something that if you're not capable of learning and growing from it, it's something that can actually send you into a dismal space where it's dark, right? And hence dismal, but where it's dark and you just judge yourself and you can't try anymore because you don't believe in yourself, right? Um, there's a lot of commentary that people can fairly and unfairly contribute to when you try something or when you talk about wanting to try something. And that can either take you up or take you down, depending where you are with failure in general. So I think failure is it's a topic I'm quite passionate about. There's two sides to it. We talked about that kind of when we were going over everything, failure and then being afraid to succeed. There's a flip side to this coin. Um, and that's one of my absolute favorite focus points on it. So yeah, there's failures, putting yourself out there and taking a risk, taking a chance, believing in yourself.
And I don't know if you saw what Denisha said. She basically kind of seconded what you had mentioned about there being that person out there that when you fail, all of a sudden that person says, well, you try to take it as something, well, I tried, I didn't succeed, but I tried. And then you have that other person who, for whatever reason, says, looks at the negative and says, you just couldn't do it. Okay,
Right.
well, yeah, maybe I couldn't do it, but I tried. And that's, to me,
Absolutely.
that's important. I tried. I know I can't succeed at doing it. Or you say, if it's something super difficult and it's like, okay, I can't succeed. But to properly fail, you end up getting to the point of saying, all right, well, I want to succeed at this. So what steps do I have to take in order to succeed? What did I learn from that mistake that's going to help me, get to that point of completing that?
Absolutely. I'll be honest, when I first became comfortable with failure, I think I was well, I know I was in my undergrad, so I was somewhere in my late 20s, early 30s. I was a late bloomer with college. And I remember listening to a podcast and the gentleman presenting, I can't tell you who it was or anything like that. It was just by chance I stumbled across it. He said, so often, we're in school and we hide our answers, right? When we write something down, we're like hiding our stuff so people can't see. And he said, don't do that. Don't do that. Let everyone see. Let people know your ideas. Let them take your ideas. Let them try it. Watch them succeed or fail and allow yourself to grow and find these new opportunities of your own ideas when others, develop it. And I thought about that and it struck me and I was like, oh, wow. Because I was a girl who I wouldn't share any of my ideas. I was like, no, it's a good idea. I'm not sharing it. And now, since then, and it's been a long time, I share my thoughts, my ideas. I encourage others to do the same. So I still really, truly remember the day I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, you're opening yourself up for pure vulnerability when you're sharing,
Oh, yeah.
right? Things like that. And vulnerability is also a scary space, and so is perfection. And both of those, they play Ring Around the Rosie with failure.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
the important thing is you learn so much from failure, whether it's yours or somebody else's.
Yes.
And it's important to learn from somebody else's mistakes and somebody else's failures, but it's even more important to learn from your own mistakes, because that's
Absolutely.
when you end up learning what you're capable of doing. And it's not just, I saw that this person did it this way, that didn't work, so now I'm going to go back and do it my own way. And cool, now it's succeeded. But what did you really learn from that? You just learned what not to do. You didn't
Hmm.
learn what works for you and what doesn't work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see Warrior just brought up my favorite, Brene Brown.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you. I remember the first time Brene was brought to me. I in my current career within the last, what I'd say it was 2015, 16-ish. My boss walked in. I was doing some notes and I was at work really late trying to catch up on my notes, and she walked in and she looked at me and she started talking and she started reciting the times tables for threes, which when I learned my multiplication tables, three is the one I learned first. And so I knew them quite well. Anyway, my boss is reciting the threes and she misspoke two of them. And she went on to say a little bit afterwards, but I was so focused on what she said wrong. I'm like, how am I going to correct her? Like, I really respect this woman, but how am I going to correct her? Because, like, she just said it wrong. Do I correct her? I had all this other internal dialogue going on, right? Because she made a mistake. And she, of course, picked up on me. She's known me a very, very long time. And she said, did you notice something? And I said, well, you mentioned 2 numbers wrong. And she said to me, she went into this elongated example of Brene Brown and perfection and explained to me that the reason I was behind on my notes was because I was struggling with perfection, which is another side of I was afraid to fail, right? I wanted to write the perfect note so in case I ever got audited or something, you know, and I went to court, they'd look at it and be like, look how beautiful this note is, right? Because I pride myself in being a good writer, but they'd be like, wow, Shazam.
Mhm.
And that's not realistic, right? But I had gotten caught up in this vortex of just perfection and self-sabotage and whatnot. And I read Brené's work. So anyone who's struggling with that kind of stuff, she's a lead researcher in it. She's funny. You can listen to her on Audible, your library, whatever. She's great. Power of Vulnerability and The Gifts of Imperfection are 2 of my favorites. There's many others, but yeah, all of that kind of circles around failure.
When you introduced her to me, I was so happy
Yeah.
because that, like, just listening to the things that she said opened so many doors. So if you do get a chance to listen to her work, please do.
Right. She doesn't just cater to females, it's male and female. Well, Randy. Anyway.
Thanks, Stacy.
No, you're welcome. No. Truly, she's a great writer and a phenomenal researcher, and like I said, she keeps it real. She keeps you entertained. She's not boring. So I'm glad you like her, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I want to backtrack on, like what Madeline said, you can be okay with it. However, it makes it harder when others belittle you for it. So it's one thing to accept your own failure, which can be difficult in its own right. How do you get past when you have outside influence making you feel bad about it, or you can't even focus on the positive? How do you get past that?
It's a great question. How do you get past that? I think everyone's different, right? I'd be interested to see what chat might have to say, how they get past it, or how they feel blocked by it, and then we could do some real life talk it out stuff. Randy, you and I, again, we know each other for a very long time, and you remember back when I was in school still, I'd get a lot of, oh, you're going back to school, you're doing this again, you're doing that.
Yep.
Remember? And I'd get very upset because I am a lifelong learner. I always will be. I try to learn at least one new thing every day. And I don't see anything wrong with that. And I never understood why other people had such an opinion of me staying in school and educating myself further. It's like, how is that impacting you? You're not paying the tuition bill.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? But I'll be honest with you guys, it was incredibly discouraging. And there came a point where I stopped telling people what I was doing because
Yep.
the support wasn't there and they were dragging me down. And I was like, this doesn't feel good. So for a while, I kept touching the hot stove and telling people. Eventually, I learned to stop
Right.
touching that hot stove.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I do. I'm like,
yeah.
if people just want to be negative around you and stuff, I just don't share that part of your life. Like, if you're excited about it and stuff, share with the people who are are going to be excited for you.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to
Absolutely.
cut those people out of your lives, but it's okay not to share with them right away.
Yep.
Once the ball starts rolling and you feel really good about it and things are actually happening, then it's okay to share what you want to share. But if they're not going to be there for you, then you don't have to say anything to them.
Absolutely.
Don't give them your time.
And
They're
that
not.
also comes down to like who you surround yourself with. If you surround
Yeah.
yourself, and this is just a general life tip, if you surround yourself with people who are constantly negative, your life is going to feel like it's constantly bad or negative things are happening, and that's all you're going to focus on. So when it comes to your failures, if you surround yourself with people who congratulate you on your successes and as well as support you on your failures, you're going to have a much happier life and you're going to grow more as a person. Whereas you surround yourself with people who put you down for your failures or make you relive those moments, you're never going to move past that.
Yep. And it's funny because
Absolutely.
honestly, I think that's what I've noticed when it comes to streaming as well. Is as a streamer, You start, yeah, I see your face, Horton,
It's like-
because
it's like-
as a streamer, you start to bring people in that you don't, it's not the people that feel the same way you do, but people who are there to help complement you and support you, and you're there to support them. So people like the like-minded type people.
Yep.
You know,
It's like
and
you find more positivity and love in like your, the community than sometimes you do from people you've known forever.
yeah,
And it's amazing.
yeah, because the people who don't fit into that group of, what community you're building aren't going to stick around. And I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine with that. I mean, I do my best to keep people around me who just have the same type of mentality, I guess. I can't say belief system because I enjoy that different type of belief system, but that mentality of you're supportive, you're not going and a waitress messes up at a restaurant and now you're screaming at her over something that she had no control over.
Yeah.
I've known people who do that, and I very
Oh.
quickly drop those people from my life because there's no reason for me to keep somebody like that around, because I don't know that's going to bleed into other areas of your life, and then
And
that's
another
going to bleed into
aspect of
mine.
that, to add on to what you're saying, it's very important to remember that everybody can be cut out from your life if they're toxic, and that includes family. You have no obligation to family
Been
if
there,
they're
done
going
that.
to destroy your life. So if you have a mother, a brother, a sister, anybody who's close to you, who's just constantly holding you back, it's going to hurt, but you need to start distancing yourself from that person.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just because we have, I guess, ties to them, you have to look and see, the toxicity of that relationship. And, you got to also look at what role do you play in it, right? And then honor and accept your right and wrong, right? And then look at them and say, okay, what are the rights and wrongs there? And are there boundaries that are being violated? Am I being respectful to myself? Am I being respectful to them, right? There's a whole thing that goes on with that. And you're right, Z. If somebody's toxic, yeah, it's not always easy to get away from them. And, but you got to take care of yourself too, and establish some boundaries and try to heal, right? And if you're
Yep.
at fault, admit your failures, right? That's not easy.
But
that's not easy.
Honestly,
it's
I think
so
that's the most
healing.
important part, is
Yeah.
admitting your failure, and then from there learning what you can do to keep that from happening again.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I just went through something, a conversation with someone recently, very, very close to me. And this individual and I, we both kind of, we had a little bit of a falling out, and we both came to the table and we're like, all right, here's the chips, man. Here's what I'm responsible for. They're like, here's what I'm responsible for. And we're like, okay, do we want to resolve this or not? Right.
Mhm.
And it was a beautiful thing, because we both were like, well, yeah, I think you're worth it. And so, you work on rebuilding and letting things go. But I'll be honest with you, how we both got there was that neither one of us wanted to admit where we were failing.
Mhm.
And first and foremost, failing ourselves, and then failing each other. Right. So
Yep.
some
Exactly.
real life stuff there.
Oh
Right.
yeah. That's huge because yeah, you really can't change or make a difference until you're honest with yourself. Otherwise, it's all an act.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just remember, though, on the flip side, the person who's been trying to help you, they may be putting on a strong face for you. So you got to make sure you're there for them too, because you don't want to just have them helping you and then letting themselves suffer.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. That's a big piece, because we can so often put ourselves out there to help others, right? And I speak as someone who cares for the mental health of others. I often tell people, I'll turn my phone on. I have an Apple, so I can turn on the do not disturb feature, and they'll get auto replies. And I personalize them to let them know I'm out of the office for the weekend, or I'm just out for now. I'll be back. But I set up some pretty firm boundaries because I have to take care of me. I can't take
Yep.
care of others if I'm not 100% as best as I can be, right? I don't ever expect myself to always be 100%. But when it comes to my career, which I absolutely love, going to work every single day that I go in, uh, I have to take care of me in order to take care of someone else. And just like even this, right? I have to be in the right mindset to be able to get here.
Mhm.
right?
And that's another thing, taking care of yourself. Even the simplest thing as like hygiene or just picking up a couple pieces of clothes around the house, those little successes can help chase away those failures too. So you're taking
Yep.
care of yourself, but at the same time, you're building up that success feeling. So that way you're getting over any previous failures and you can move on to trying again.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it's just good to
Absolutely.
take care of yourself, and then you don't, because like you get a mom as a mom, you get a lot of the mom guilt and the things like that for taking even 5 minutes to yourself, and it's not true. You have to get through the day, and and there's a failure in some people's eyes. It's like your whole life doesn't revolve around your kids or things like that. It's like no, you're doing the best you can. That's success
Yep.
in that sense. Like you have to take care of you, otherwise you're just a bump on a log. It's not good.
Yep. And you're gonna have, I mean, on a daily basis, we have failures throughout the entire day. And even if there's
Exactly.
small little things that you don't even notice, you're going to fail throughout the day. But every single thing that you fail at grows you into a better person because hopefully you learn from that. And by
Yeah.
learning from that, going back to what I've said multiple times, you end up learning that, hey, I'm not going to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a child getting up, when they're 1.5 years old and learning how to walk.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep them from failing, they're never going to learn how to walk. They're not going to, because we have
Right.
to fail and we have to learn, okay, I failed at doing this. What am I going to learn from it? And by learning from it, then I know, okay, well, I need to keep my balance a little bit better. And I need to do this. And maybe if I use my hands, oh, cool, my hands worked. Now I have a success.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you learn to take your hands off of the wall. And, it's a gradual process in every single
Yep.
thing that we do. So I want to jump into kind of talking about the emotional side of failure. And really looking at why failure is, and we've kind of already gotten into that with this, but why is failure so important when it comes to our emotional growth? Not just our physical of, learning how to do new things, maybe like I said, walking or something like that, but the emotional growth. Um, so Z, I don't know if you have any specific thoughts on this, on kind of like what.
So for
Yeah.
me, yeah, a lot of my psychological issues come from my childhood. Uh, and everybody has some issues or another to some degree. So admitting that you have some psychoses and some things that is a healthy thing. You can't be like, well, I'm perfect, because then you're just denying that. Everyone's got something that they want to work on for themselves. For me, the big emotional one for me was I grew up in a household where my little sister could do no wrong. She could, and she has scratched, cut me, and scarred me uh, to try to steal something from me, and I was told I should have just given it to her. Uh, so she got away with a murder all the time, and so anytime I would succeed, it would go to the wayside because it wasn't her doing it. So for me, succeeding was almost as bad as failing. So I had a lot of emotional to both sides of that. Uh, it caused a lot of issues in my early adulthood, and I went through a string of women in my life before I met Horton, and most of the time I had a hard time emotionally connecting to them because of fear of failure. And she helped me become a much better person. And I don't want to say that you need to find a person to help get over a lot of these emotional issues that failure can bring, but in my situation, she helped me realize things about myself so I could work on those. And
Yep.
that's what uh, that's Stacy here could do. It is Stacy, right? I'm not
Yes.
mixing up
Yeah. No,
names in my
you're
head again,
okay.
am I?
You're
Okay,
okay.
okay. Yeah, no, you can
Oh,
talk to
whatever.
people like Stacy here who can help you get over these issues and move on. I didn't have the ability to go see help for that, so I got lucky and found somebody who was able to help me. But you don't need to find a romantic partner. You can talk to anybody about that, and it'll help you move forward. And the emotional relief you will feel from that is indescribable.
Yep.
Yeah, but at the same time, he was ready for that. He was ready to move forward and get over those things. If you're in a place where you're still holding on to those things and making excuses for yourself and doing all those things, you're not a place where help is really going to just fall in your lap, and
Yeah.
you have to work at it too and be ready for it.
Absolutely. And I think you both raise a phenomenal point. In my line of work and in therapy, people can come to a session, and here's my cat saying hello. Hello.
She knew I was hurting. She came to help me.
Right. um, it's the therapy cat. No, but people can show up to a session and it doesn't go anywhere because they're just looking for me to give them advice or give them the answers. I'm not going to do that. The answers are all within each and every one of us, right? They're within me, they're within you, right? And we've just got to be comfortable and ready to seek those answers out. And that's a hard space to get to. Again, that means we have to lay down our weapons, whatever those might be, allow ourselves to be vulnerable and admit failure. But failure doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yeah, it's all about taking responsibility too. It's not anybody else's fault. You have to look inside. You gotta stop blaming everybody else. It's all has to come from in.
Kind of to double what you guys said, I think it's both pieces. It's understanding that I am emotionally ready to get help or to seek whatever it might be. And then it's also finding the right person to talk to. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a romantic partner, but it can be a therapist, it can be a friend, it can be a family member, just somebody who you feel comfortable enough talking to. I know there have been quite a few people over the last couple months since starting the podcast where we've had people who have reached out to Warrior and I to talk about their issues just as a completely neutral person.
That's
and we
fantastic.
hopefully we've been able to help them just kind of move past certain things, understand their failures, or understand certain pieces of what's going on, because clearly if they're reaching out for help, they're recognizing that something is wrong or that I'm failing or whatever the topic might be for them, and they're entrusting somebody. And if I end up not being the right person, after having a conversation with them, I'm okay with that, because I'm willing to at least have that conversation for them to be able to recognize that this just wasn't a fit. So at that point, then you say, all right, well, go on to somebody else who's going to be able to help you. It doesn't have to be me.
And be careful, because true, and something I've seen from family and things like that is they go to the wrong person, someone who just adds toxicity to their life. So they may feel like they're feeling better because that person in and of themselves isn't in a place necessarily, happy with themselves. So they're going to give advice to, like, one of our family members. He's got issues too, similar to Z's, and he met up with somebody who also has similar issues. So they fed off each other and victimized themselves. So rather than getting better and realizing their own faults, they continue to blame everyone around them.
And that's just, it's only going to make it worse.
Exactly. And it's going to make them feel bad too. Like, they think they're feeling better when they're together, but when they're with anyone else and they're talking about it, they don't feel good. And
Kind
you
of like
can
a
see it.
self-destructive feedback loop.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely.
So you have to be careful.
Absolutely. And there's in our house, I'll tell my husband, I'm looking for a cheerleader, or I'm looking for you to be a coach. I'm looking for you to be a teammate. And I'm identifying to him what kind of support I need, because I check in with myself first. And I'll be honest, this took years of practice, guys. And I went through therapy my own self too. Right. So I'll come right out and say this isn't, I had to work on this. But I'm able to identify, okay, what do I need right now? Do I need you to, be a cheerleader with me and be like, yeah, get them, right? Or do I need you to be a coach and a mentor to me and say, hey, have you tried this or have you tried that? And, or do I need you just to be a spectator and cheer me on from afar, right? But not a heckler. No hecklers. Right.
That
But I
doesn't
think
fix anything.
being able, it doesn't.
It's always it mind boggles me, because in the military, that's one of the things where they feel like if they heckle you and put you down, that it's going to motivate you to do better next time, and it is such a toxic way to create an environment around that person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And being mindful of who you seek advice from too. Um,
Mm.
Again, if you're going, if you're just newly got engaged, you're not going to go to your friend who just got divorced and be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, are you
Yeah.
happy for me?" They're going to have a hard time and you're putting them in a bad position.
Yep.
Right? You might want to share it with them, but be mindful, be respectful of yourself,
Yep.
others. It's really a big circle of trust and kindness at the end of the day.
Which goes back to who you surround yourself with.
Yep.
Yep.
Hmm.
Die Hard. I was laughing at your face.
Absolutely.
You're like, I want to say something, but I'm not going to.
Well, because okay, so well with Z's thing, because I was in JROTC in high school and stuff, and the reason why they do that in the military is because it's all backwards, and they teach them at a young age to kind of do something, but they don't do the second half of it, which is they'll heckle you a little bit when you're down, but then they blow you up when you're above. So you can be a little bit at your low, and it's a training technique for the super newbies. It's not for people that have been in for a while. It's a super newbie because once they start getting the hang of it, you just keep beating them with like, you're doing freaking amazing. And yeah. So it goes to boosting them up. It's heckling is kind of teasing to make them feel a part of everything. And then you boost it up. But it's been lost over the years in the military. And it's kind of sad because that's a leadership thing that they
Yeah.
teach you when you're young.
And
But yeah.
it's a very dangerous thing to put
It
yourself in the
is.
middle
Oh,
of.
it's totally dangerous, especially if it's not done correctly. That's why they don't really mess around with it. But people are used to seeing it that way from the movies and stuff that they have no idea what they're doing, and the leadership's all poopy now.
Yep.
So, but yeah.
So
Yeah.
so during our prep, Z, you brought something up talking about, I believe it was you, talking about like the inspirational quotes, and it's easy to to say inspirational things, but it's really hard to implement those items into actually supporting somebody. I can very easily say, hey, you're doing great, but then when they fail, I'm not there to help them. I don't need to fix their problems. I should not be fixing their problems, but I should be there to support them. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Horton. Um, what are your what do you think we can do to change the mindset after a failure?
I think it takes practice, and it takes reminding ourselves and the people that we're trying to help that it's just one step, it's just one day, it's just, a moment. You have so many more. And it's that constant reminder. Like it's not going to be fixed overnight. Nothing is going to be fixed because you say, "Hey, a failure is one step forward, not two steps back." You know, it's reminding ourselves that yes, we didn't get this today. What can we do in next time that'll get it better? Maybe you don't put such pressure on yourself. So instead of like a big one is going to the gym every day or, things like that. It's okay. How about next time you just go to the gym? You just go there. Tomorrow, you're just going to go to the gym.
Don't even have to work out.
Don't work out.
Yep.
Don't do anything. Just go. Make your goals closer to you so that way you can build up to feeling more inspired and less like you're failing because you are not failing. Like you're still working for it, you're still moving forward. It's just at a slower pace and that's okay because it's just another moment and it's going to be gone and you'll do something else that's amazing. It's just how it works. We're always getting better. There's always another day.
And
That is
the important thing to remember is that even though it's a slower pace, and I put that in air quotes, it's a slower pace, it's your pace.
Exactly. There's nothing
yes.
wrong with it at all because you're
There's
moving
music to
forward.
my ears. Yes. My heart is just dancing right now. It's like, oh yes, yes. I was talking to somebody once and in just casual chat, and they were like, yeah, my treadmill's in my room. I just can't even get on it. It holds all my laundry. And I joked with this individual. I said, I'll tell you what, tomorrow morning when you wake up, just go and touch it. Just touch the treadmill. And she laughed at me. She goes, are you serious? You want me to just touch my treadmill? I go, yeah, just touch it. Maybe pet it. Right? Just kind of joking around.
Yeah.
She text messages me and she goes, and forgive me for this, guys. I'm just going to quote what she said. She goes, "You bitch, I got on."
Yeah.
And I laughed. I said, "Mission accomplished." Right? And
Exactly.
and what I was trying to do for her was say, just approach it. Just like you said, Horton, just it's one moment, one step at a time. And sometimes when we're trying to overcome failure, that's what we have to do, right? Is just literally one step. You take your day and you break it in half, or if half is too much, then break it into quarters, right?
Exactly.
Thirds, however you got to do it, 1 hour at a time if necessary.
Like if
It's
you've got to,
okay.
a shower is a success. Like just
Oh yeah.
wake up like I'm gonna take a shower, and then when you're out of the shower, boom, done.
Yep.
You have your first success done of the day.
Right. And when you
Absolutely.
do those things, it's okay to have your cheerleader, like that person that you can tell, hey, I need you just to go over the moon today that I took a shower when I text
Yep.
you in 5 minutes. Like, and call them, be like, I took a shower today. Because it's so, not only is it important to take it day by day and feel good about yourself, but sometimes like, when you feel really good about yourself, you want to talk to somebody about it. It's okay to give them a heads up that you need to hear the biggest cheers in like 2 seconds
Yep.
because you did it. And it's, because when you share it, it makes it more real, at least for me. So I'm like, yo, I need a cheerleader. I just, I swept the floor today. I
And
did it. Look at it. It's
Yep.
beautiful. Yeah.
and it doesn't matter how stupid you think it is, because
Exactly.
it's a success, and just
Mhm.
cherishing those little successes will help build over time into something that
Exactly.
is actually going to be meaningful to you,
Yeah.
and is
And it
is
takes,
hopefully
yeah.
going to overthrow the failures, like the emotional strain that the failures create with those successes.
Exactly, because you'll start thinking of them in a more positive light too. You'll just be like, "Oh, I didn't do that. That's okay. Tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow I'll just pick up the mop. We'll see how it goes." You
Yeah.
know?
You got to be careful though, because there's such a thing. Like I don't know what else you would call it. I call it toxic supporting, or whatever it is. I
That's fair.
went to somebody's house, and they had an inspirational calendar. They had a quote of the day. They had a dry erase with motivational speaking. So they had so much stuff to motivate them and to inspire them, and that it all became static.
Yes.
So whenever
Yep.
somebody did come up with some advice or some compliments, or some congratulations, it was just lost in the noise in the background. So
Yep.
you don't want to inundate yourself with all these inspirational stuff. You want to find what works for you and stick with that. You don't just want to flood the landscape.
Exactly. Because, like, a big part of that for me is, like, I don't believe, for me, I'm like, there is no such thing as, like, that motivation. Like, oh, I feel, like, there are days I'll wake up and I'm like, I feel motivated. But on the days that I don't feel that way, I call it forced motivation. Because if
Yeah.
you start something, it, like, takes off and has that snowball effect. So I always force my motivation. I call it forced
Yeah.
And if
And
it,
you know what? There's days I take it step by step. I'm like, I'm out of bed. That matters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I just want to stay there. It's cozy and I got the cat.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
see,
Absolutely.
I have in my notes talking about participation awards, but if we have time, we will have a dive
Oh.
into those.
I was like,
I know
that might take the rest of the
I
time.
know. That's why I want to get into a couple other things before we dive into that. So let's see. So let's kind of go the opposite direction right now, and let's talk about, and we'll get into the idea of goals and figuring out, if you have a goal that you feel is not achievable, how to accomplish that goal. If you want to be an astronaut, awesome, be an astronaut. But there are certain things that you need to do to get to that are smaller steps. You can't just wake up one day and say, I'm an astronaut. That's not how it works. And even with the smaller goals too, if getting out of bed is something that you struggle with, let's say you're dealing with a bunch of depression, and you are really struggling right now getting out of bed, then saying, okay, what can I do to kind of psych myself out to get out of bed? It's those little tiny things that will get you to that ultimate goal.
Exactly. Like when you hide a Snickers across the rooms.
Oh.
I've totally done that. I'm like, my Snickers, like, I'll wake up in the morning and be like, I know there's Snickers in the drawer across the room.
Yep.
And I'm hungry and I want it. Like,
how much do I really want it? How much do I want it?
You know, it's funny. I do something similar. So I I have some health stuff, and well, I'll just say I have diabetes, and to drink regular pop is an absolute treat, or to eat a piece of candy, right? I have to run up and down my stairs or do laps around my house, get on that treadmill that my cat climbs. I have to do physical activity. So I will literally debate. I'm like, all right, is that white chocolate worth it? I got to
I
go up and
love
down the
it.
stairs at least 5 times. How bad do I want it? Or like my Pepsi, I actually ran around a lot today to ensure that I could have that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll be honest, that's advice from my dietitian. I work with one. That's not just my own opinion, so I'm gonna put the plug out there for the dietitian I work with.
Well, and yeah, and that's a huge thing is rewarding yourself for, even the small things when you first start off too, is just giving yourself a reward, like going to the gym. You're like, oh, I can have one half a candy bar or whatever it is. Just something that makes that success a little more real to you and a little
Yep.
more uppity. It's just reward yourself. There's nothing wrong with it.
And
Absolutely,
building
even
to that ultimate
non-food
thing.
related rewards
Oh,
too, right?
exactly. I'm a little hungry, but yeah, definitely non-food.
Both ends of that.
So let's talk about personal goals. Because we're kind of already on that topic. So let's talk about personal goals and what, I guess initially I want to talk about what we do, kind of from all four of us, what we do when it comes to achieving personal goals. How do you set a goal? How do you just immediately focus on, this is my goal, this is what I'm going to do? Do you break it down? What is your process of setting goals to ultimately see success? And in that process, figuring out the failures that could potentially come up during that. Stacey, I'll start with you.
Oh, hang on, I'm answering someone in chat on something.
Okay. Well, then Z, I will
Can I
start
go
with you.
second?
She has the moment striking her. She needs to get it out now.
Do it.
So for me, I can't even give you a success story because I'm still in the middle of that development. For me, I've always struggled with feeling like I have too much on my plate, including right now. Right now, I feel like I wish I could show you the whiteboard that's right behind my monitor here. It is just inundated with letters. Uh, Honest to God, I struggle with trying to figure out what to do. And then some days I get so overwhelmed that I decide, you know what, today I'm not going to do anything but take care of myself. And that whether that be eat some ice cream or go for a drive or just play with my kids, just
Mm-hmm.
I take a day and I just let it get past me. And the next day I'll try again. Because if I get overwhelmed, then I will not be able to focus on whatever I'm trying to do. Uh, but on the days where I do have that motivation to get something done, the thing I try to do first is I try to find the smallest thing on my list to knock that out first so I can get that first success in. And I feel like whatever comes after that is just icing on the cake.
Yep.
Uh, Now, I feel like the list is never ending because every time I seem to complete something, I feel like there's more added to it. And it still doesn't help with the feeling of being overwhelmed. So all I do is just try to keep with it and just get up in the day and just do something small. And some days I catch up. I got back from a deployment. I'll use this as an example. I came back and a lot of the stuff on my to-do list that I was worrying about before I left for the deployment didn't matter anymore. In fact, I came back and the first thing I did was started wiping off my to-do list, all the stuff I didn't need to do anymore. And it turns out 99% of that board didn't even need to be done anymore. And so I could just focus on one or two things. That's all I had to do on my to-do list. And I was able to stay on top of it at that point. So sometimes you have to take some of the stuff and just get rid of it because you don't need to do it.
Yep. Just understanding what is actually important versus just things that maybe I want to do versus what I need.
Oh yeah. And if you start to feel overwhelmed, again, just focus on what you need to do that day. That's one of his bigger problems is he looks at just such the big picture that
Yep.
he just focuses and it immobilizes him to the point where he's like, I don't even want to get anything done. I don't even want to do anything today. And I have to remind him like, what can you don't think about it. Today you don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Tomorrow, start with one thing that you can get done and leave it at that, and we'll build from there again. Because it's a just overflows sometimes.
It's really important to take a mental health day. I mean, I did that for work today. I took the day off, took a mental health day, did my own thing, prep for this, did what I needed to do. And the fear that I always have when it comes to taking a mental health day is wanting more mental health days. And then eventually you get to a point, kind of to your guys' point of saying, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything today. I'm going to enjoy my family. I'm going to do whatever I want to. And then you just need to keep yourself from saying tomorrow, well, I just want a mental health day. And then now it's a problem and things start to build up even more. And I think that's the scary thing. And that's where you end up getting into the failures, is allowing that to become an issue. So if you can keep yourself motivated to an extent of saying, Horton, like what you said, okay, you took a mental health day, and tomorrow let's start with something small. And then you
Exactly.
start with something small, and that, going back what you said, Stacy, just go touch the treadmill. Go touch it. Just take something small, and when you feel that success from doing something small, that builds up into, all right, cool. Well, I got this. Now I can go do something else that seems small. And then you progressively build yourself back up into being motivated to do more things. And now your whiteboard is more and more. Unless you're a Z and you just keep adding stuff to it.
I gotta chime in on some of that chat. My stepdaughter just chimed in. So hi, everyone. I'm calling her out.
Mm-hmm.
No, she wrote Stacy Snow Days, and I want to share with you guys. So when I would drive her to school, how it started, there was one day it was so snowy. I'm like, forget it. We're having a Stacy Snow Day. And we went back home and we just kind of chilled out and hung out and just kind of a relaxing day, right? So I started teaching her at an early age self-care as best as I could, right? And I think she was probably 9, 10 when that happened. And anyhow, it continued on. I mean, it'd be summertime, and well, not summer per se, because she'd be on break, but nice weather. And she'd be like, can I have a Stacy Snow Day? And I'm like, well, why? We'd talk about it and stuff. So um around our house, we called them Stacy Snow Days. At least she and I did. Um, but yeah, it's important to take care of yourself and just do things, and kind of to spin around and answer now, Randy. And I apologize. I wanted to make sure I sent that message, and I type a little
I get
slow. Today I had a bunch of things to get done. I'm going back to school and everything starts tomorrow, right? And so I'm just kind of checklisting and organizing everything because I'm somebody who needs lists. Not always, but sometimes. And I handled a bunch of stuff. I was a multitasking queen today, and which is not always the case. Sometimes I start a lot of things, and Randy, you know this because you know me and whatnot. I will start a lot of things and walk away. I will turn on the kitchen faucet and walk away, or leave the refrigerator open. And I don't have ADD. My mind just gets moving, and I'm doing 100 things at once, right? But today I wiped down the kitchen counter, and I was like, you know what? That's enough, and that's good enough. We're good. I'll get the rest done the rest of this week, right? Because I didn't clean my house this weekend. I did some outdoor work instead that really needed to be done. Um, so I was a little off my rhythm and tracks. And even though I had multiple successes prepping my stuff, my calendar, and just getting ready for school, right? I didn't get my house cleaned, but I wiped down the kitchen counter, and that was enough. And I mean, it took me less than a minute to do. Um, and that was a success, and that was okay. Right. So I couldn't agree more with you guys in what you're saying, just celebrating those small things. Um, and sometimes that's all we can do because that's all we're capable of doing, right? Whether you're on the anxious mindset of things and what comes with that, or if you're on the depressive side and what comes with that, or if, yeah, both going on, right? Just honoring yourself and meeting yourself where you're at. I can't say that enough times or stress it enough.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's going into that. It's like what Huster in chat said, where, it sometimes when you look at the big picture, sometimes it's a matter of just taking 10 minutes, going head in, doing something, and then walking away from it. Because at least you've accomplished something. You may have, quote unquote, failed at the big picture, or in your mind you may have failed the big picture, but you've accomplished something. And then at that point, then it's a matter of saying, okay, well, I did this, what can I do next?
Exactly.
And hoping that builds up into something where you're actually going to complete the project, or you're going to, maybe you do 10 minutes of 4 different things, and now that's 40 minutes that you've accomplished 4 different things. You may not have finished the entire thing, but at least you've done something.
Yep.
And you don't feel that you're a complete failure in the overall process.
Exactly. Yeah, I get in that trap. Like, I'll force, that's what I said. I force the motivation. I clean. Like, tomorrow, I know I'm have to do my laundry. And I'm like, and I know probably by the end of it, I'll be like feeling good and motivated enough to like clean the rest of the house. And I just get like, but then I get like that tunnel vision where I'm like, now I made to get things done. This is great. It feels good. So, you never know what'll take you some days. Other days, it's like, I did it. I'm done. It's nap time.
Yeah, exactly. I've spent 10 minutes doing something. All right, see you guys.
Exactly.
Like I've accomplished what I really wanted to, and that was half of this project. And it's only because now I'm tired and I don't really feel like doing it. And then tomorrow might be a different day. Tomorrow you might not want to do anything, or you might want to come out and now you're like you said, now all of a sudden you get that second wind and you're gung ho on, and you end up completing everything on Z's board.
Yep.
Sorry, Z, I'm going to keep bringing up your board.
Oh no, she doesn't even. She has her mental list. I have the memory of a goldfish, so I have to put it all out. I put it all down. So she doesn't even touch anything on my to-do list. Well, she does. She does try to help, but there's a lot of stuff on there that she can't do.
Yeah.
Well,
but in all honesty, she has a mind of a steel trap. I cannot get away with anything around here.
Well, and I also don't write it down. Like, because if I know what I want to get done, I'll get it done. And I don't write it down necessarily because for me, that's looming. Having all of that, like, above me. I just, like, I know. Yeah, I have my notebooks. But that's the thing. I have my notebook. So, like, if there's something I need to get done, I can look at my notebook for the day and close it up. And that's it. It's not staring me in the face all day. Like, I can't do that. If I have a goal and I know it's in here, then I know it's important if it's still in my brain. If it's still on my mind, I know it's important. And if not, I can look it up in the notebook and just, double check what I need to get done today versus, what I want to get done. And I don't like it above me. I think it's looming and it gives me like, oh, I need to go to bed. Like I can't do any of it. So you got to do what works for you.
Yep.
Absolutely. And it's the second time it's come up. The first time I forgot to say something. Needs versus wants. Identifying them for your mental health in general is so important to do. What do I need to do? What do I want to do? Right? Part of the reason I was late, Randy, obviously I told you I had to eat, but I also needed to go get magnets for my Corona Queen desk that I explained to you earlier. I have a drawer that keeps popping forward, so I need a magnet. And I needed to get that done so I could check one more thing off my list, like you, Horton, with a notebook, right? And it made me run a little bit late for our kind of rehearsal, but I wasn't too far off, right? But it was great because I identified needs versus wants. I wanted to stay home and not do that, but I needed to get it done, so I did, right? So important to be able to identify your needs and wants. And sometimes when it feels like things are too big and you feel like failure is just kind of like looming over you, identifying the difference between what you need to do, what you want to do can actually kind of part the seas, if you will, and make things seem so much easier, right?
And it gives you the more motivation too, because like I find like it's like if I want to take that nap today, I'm like, if I get this done, because I need to do it today, cannot wait. But if I get that one thing done, then I can take that nap that I really feel I need today, and I really want it. Like yeah.
And for some
Horton,
people,
I think you and I might be the same person.
I know. I love you.
And some people that really works. That whole cheese at the end of the maze thing really does work. Like you just got to reward yourself once you're done with it. So you got to keep focusing on the reward instead of the actual task itself.
Oh yeah, I blame my parents for that though. Is the whole potty training thing? Like if you not potty train for these days, you get a big wheel, or and that's how they always did it. If you got straight A's, you got these things, or And as kids, like that totally works, and as adults, it still works because I'm just a giant baby inside. So yeah.
Well, and it's also important to identify what your limits are. And knowing, that if you set yourself up for failure over and over and over again, it's not going to make anything better.
No.
If you have a goal, going back to my idea of, I want to be an astronaut. Okay, you want to be an astronaut, but if you keep waking up expecting to just be an astronaut, it's never going to happen. So if you know what your limits are, and you know, okay, I can accomplish this, but it's going to take these things to accomplish that, then you can be successful in doing whatever it is. But if you set yourself for failure and you don't know where your limits are for that moment, and obviously your limits shift. You know, if you're looking to be an astronaut and you make it through halfway of, through your program or whatever you're doing, then that limit has shifted to that point. You know, it's progressively gotten better and better and better.
I
If
feel
I'm-
like you're talking directly to me right now.
if you're 5 years old, the chances of you becoming an astronaut in the next year probably not going to happen. But if you're 40 years old and you've accomplished, 90% of what it takes to be an astronaut, then you have a much better chance of actually becoming an astronaut. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes knowing what your overall goal is and understanding what it takes to get to that goal, and then what your limitations are along the way.
So that actually is a good thing I want to segue into. When I was younger, I'm kind of tooting my own horn. I was very, very bright, and so I was very good at all the classes. I didn't have to try very hard, uh, and so whenever the time went by and things actually started getting more and more actually difficult, I was already set up in my mindset that I didn't have to try. I could just do it. And then I started realizing I was starting to struggle. And now I realize I just can't go and just do anything. But for years, I had a hard time realizing that I actually had to put work in, because beforehand it just came so natural to me that I didn't have to.
Yep.
And so I couldn't make those small steps to get to my goals because I just expected the goals to happen because I used to be able to do that.
Because you weren't used to failing.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to fail, because like you were saying, you have to take those small steps. If you don't fail as a young age, then you're going to have a hard time accepting that failure later on and being able to take those
Oh,
small
yeah.
steps like you were mentioning. You have to let your kids fail. I wish I would have been allowed to fail a lot more. Like, participation awards are horrible.
Oh, yeah. See, I haven't gone. Actually, Stacy, since you had to write that message, I'll go to you first again. How would you either you personally, or how would you talk to any of your clients, or anybody you've talked to? How do you identify what the core values are when it comes to success or failure?
So when I work with people, and I tailor it to however that person identifies, with figuring out what their value set is. So sometimes we write things out, sometimes we do things online, whatnot. But when it comes to success and what they value, one of the things I do, it kind of unique, is I say, okay, when you talk about success, what 3 words do you want to repeatedly be part of your narrative, right? Um, and so that can look a lot different. So, like for someone like me, 3 words that I would want part of my narrative would be leadership, mentor, and relaxation. Those would be 3 words that I value being part of what I would consider success, right? And then, okay, what's the story build up around that? So it's almost like taking a paragraph and highlighting keywords, but kind of inverting it a little bit. That's what I do. But looking at again, it varies from person to person, but looking at what they feel they or what they believe they can't live without, right? What defines them as human. That's how I work to help people identify what their values are.
Heard.
Does that answer your
Yeah.
question?
It does. It does. Orton, you look like you have something to say.
Huh? No. No, I totally agree. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I think identifying my core values is all about, kind of to echo what you said, Stacy, is knowing what matters to me, and what it's not even what my goals are in general, it's what matters to me. And then I can take that and I can build off of that and build that paragraph around those 3, 4, 5 words or whatever it might be. I mean, as
Mhm.
I've known a few authors who have done that exact thing. They take a topic, you know, they'll write a book or a story or whatever, and they'll take a topic, they'll have keywords, and then from those keywords, they build their story on that. And
Mhm.
I think that's one of those things that I've always tried to do, is I've always tried to say, okay, you know, this is what I want to accomplish, but based on these factors. You know, it might not be specific keywords, but it's based on these factors. And from these factors, I can do a basic identification of what the failures might be. And there's times that I will intentionally fail in order to learn from that failure, as long as I know that that intentional failure is not going to harm the overall goal. Because that's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to know what you can and can't do. Streaming is a prime example of that. You know, where we go into, you know, Horton, you guys blew up quickly. You know, somebody like, well, quickly-ish. You guys have been streaming the same amount of time that I have. You know, and you guys have a really good following, and I commend that. Like, I absolutely love that. You know.
It's the boobs.
Yeah, well, yeah. But you guys, but here's the thing. You guys also have that personality, and you guys are, you know, you're dynamic together, and you guys building this community together has been fantastic to watch. But there have been those failures along the way.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there have been those things that both of you have looked at and said, you know, and we haven't had the conversation about this, but I guarantee it's happened, because you guys look at it and you say, all right, what can we do better next time?
Exactly.
You know, that happens on a daily basis when it comes to streaming. I mean, there's
Oh,
times
yeah.
there's times I'll start up the stream. I mean, it happened what, Wednesday, I think. Yeah, it was Wednesday last week. I started up the stream and I realized I didn't have most of my lights on. You know, and it's a small failure, it's a small thing, but you're like, oh crap. You know, now I look dumb. But then what do you learn from that? You learn, make sure you have everything set up beforehand.
Yep.
Before you know, start to do it. And you progressively get better as a streamer or as a person or as something. I've
Oh,
made
exactly.
a lot of mistakes in my past, but I will never say that I regret any of those.
Because they led you to where you are now, and that's
Yep.
important to remember too. Is I wouldn't be anywhere without the mistakes that I made, and you know, and never harp on them. Like,
Yep.
it's okay to learn from your mistakes, but sitting there and going, "Oh God, if I do it again, that could happen," or I might say the wrong thing again. You know, because yeah, I've said wrong things all the time, and I'm like, "Oh no, that was not. We should not say those things." And you know, it's just you can't harp on it. Like, I can't sit there and just constantly think like I shouldn't say that, I shouldn't say that, or whatever.
Yep.
It's not. You gotta, you gotta let it go. Learn from it and let it go.
Yeah. There's things that I've dealt with, you know, when it comes to working with people, where somebody gets offended by a certain word. And
Oh, yeah.
I use that word around the person, and then they end up saying, "Well, I don't like that word." And I say, "Okay, well, I'll just make sure I don't use it around you again." And it's as simple as that.
Exactly. That's
then-
how
Like a
we
certain
learn.
M word.
What? I'm sorry.
Oh, like
Are you moist under the
moist?
mask? Um. But exactly, like, and everything's different for different
Yes,
people
EOD,
too.
like that word. Yes, you've nailed it. That's the
But
one.
Yep.
yeah, it's just, exactly. And like, if someone tells you to stop something, because I do that if in conversations and things like that. If someone talks to me or says something, I'll sit there and, like, even after the streams, like, I'll stay up all, like, at night, just go over everything that was said and how it goes. And I'm like, I've been learning to let that go, because
Yep.
I am one of those that will do that forever. And streaming has actually helped me get over that, because
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that happened. Tomorrow will be better. And I have to, like, let those conversations go.
Yep. And you learn that, okay, well, if this topic ever comes up or something like this topic, you know what? I'm just going to say, moving on. Let's pick a new
Yes.
topic. You know, there's you can watch a lot of people who stream, and they will skim longer messages, or even just skim messages and not say it out loud. I mean, there's comments that I've made in chat that's acceptable for chat, but it's not acceptable for the streamer to actually say it out loud. Because then they're adding their voice to that. And from that, then now all of a sudden you feel like shit because you've repeated whatever it was. And so it's one of those things that you do it one time and you learn very quickly, hey, let me skim chat. Let me make sure that this is something that I agree with before saying it. Unless it's something you disagree with and now you want to talk about that
Yeah,
topic. That's obviously a
exactly.
little bit different.
Unless you want to bring it up more. Exactly,
Yep.
exactly. But yeah, exactly. There's so many like little tricks to that and stuff, and it's really cool because exactly you've failed from it. You know, you've had those oopsies, and then
Yep.
you move forward, and it's great
Yep. As long as you learn from it.
as long as you learn from it. Exactly, and you don't harp. Can't harp.
So
And that actually brings up a hang on one
Yep.
sec, Randy.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
brings up a couple sorry. Time out, buddy. No. There've been no, there've been a couple things in chat. See, I'm excited I can read chat now. So I'm like all over this. I've been storing things up. There have been some really good comments in here. And I love when chat engages with stuff. Just talking about different individuals talking about the anxiety, kind of getting stuck in that cyclic mindset, right? When anxiety kicks in, and I always refer to anxiety and depression, all of the different behaviors, as not people, but I give them identities. So anxiety is a she, and she's got claws and she digs in, right? And it'll do exactly that. One key thing to remember for anyone that struggles with anxiety is remembering that we get anxious and our mind races because we don't have answers. And when we don't have answers, we start to behave in self sabotaging ways, defeating ways. And one way to meet yourself where you're at, or kind of just kind of soothe anxiety, one way, there's multiple, but this one tends to be kind of successful, is finding something that you can get immediate satisfaction out of, where you can get answers. So, I'll tell people, fold your bath towels, organize your closet, clean something where you can see instantaneous satisfaction, gratification from something you put effort into. Playing a video game you're really, really good at and you win every time. Don't play one you're not good at. But finding something that can kind of bring you back to, I say bring it back to center, bring you back to neutral. um that's one way to kind of get your mind out of that spinning cycle, if you will. um
Oh yeah.
so just a quick tip, again, a therapist but not your therapist, but just giving you tips.
Right. I did that the other day. I rearranged the living room. It felt great.
yeah. And if you have an
Mhm.
entire house that's a complete disaster, start with one room. Do a
Mhm.
room a day, or do half a room a day, or just pick up certain things.
Yes.
And
Right.
eventually over time, as long as you're not adding more crap to it, over time it starts to make you feel better about what you're doing, and eventually you'll succeed in that, in cleaning the house.
Absolutely. There was one other comment in here that I want to make sure I address, just because it strikes my interest. Um, in regards to kicking kids to the curb, ages 33 and 25. Um, what was written is, how do I get them to understand they have to get their shit together? You can't. There's nothing you can do. They have to actually learn that. The best thing you can do is lead by example, and just be a good representative of what it means to be a productive member of society. Um, it has to be their decision. We can't do things for others as badly as we want to. Um, People have to want to do things for themselves. It's like when somebody, quits smoking, or we want them to quit smoking, we want them to quit drinking, or we want them to quit self-sabotaging. We see somebody doing a bad behavior, and we just see them kind of bringing themselves down. There's nothing we can say or do to make them change their mind. What we can do is just find a way to be good support, have healthy boundaries,
Mhm.
and hope that they see the answer in the light. Help them find an answer. Open-ended questions are your best friend. Um, you know, Open-ended questions. How does that make you feel? What do you think about that? Tell me more. I don't understand. Can you explain that a little bit more to me? Giving somebody truly the space and the platform to have their voice be heard and not say anything back. I do far less talking at work than I do talking, unless I have to, unless there's, but I participate. I'm certainly not a therapist that says, tell me how that makes you feel. Um, I don't actually. I kind of mock that a little bit every now and then when I get to do it. I'm like, hold on, let me get my pose. You know, I have a little fun with it.
I
But
got something I can add in on personal wise for that. Uh,
yeah,
that whole failure to launch, and that's what I'm assuming is it's like the kids are staying at home, like they're not getting in their own place and things like that. That failure to launch is kind of seeded into that whole fear of failure. They don't want to get their own place because they're afraid they're going to lose it or they won't be able to take care of themselves. So they're comfortable where they're at. They don't want to try to go out of that because they already are there.
Yep.
So if you encourage that whole fail or not, you still need to try. Is getting them to try new things, whether it be try new foods, little things like that. It can build up to them being ready to try to go out on their own. They just have to start willing to be trying new
Yep.
things.
I still
wholeheartedly agree.
I still remember the first time that I moved out. It was probably the most nerve-wracking thing I have ever done because I was afraid of that failure. I was afraid of moving out and all of a sudden, something happens and now I can't afford the place or it becomes overwhelming and I don't know what I'm doing. What am I going to do with, X, Y, and Z? And I have this whole list of reasons why not to live at my parents' house. And that list of why I needed to live at my parents' house was the same length. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like I need to take that head on and figure out these mistakes and fail in order to succeed in actually living on my own. It took me probably 6 months of living on my own, well, with my ex-wife, before I was actually comfortable. But I got to that point of finally, after a long time, being able to not stress over living on my own. And now I can never imagine going back to my parents' house.
Financially, I can imagine it.
Well, I mean, if
I
I
would
can
love to have that extra income.
Oh yeah, well, financially there's many reasons.
No.
But yeah, I mean, it's taking that initial step though. I think is by far the most nerve-wracking thing for somebody who's at a younger age, of saying, whether you're 18 or 35, of saying I'm moving out. I had an old friend of mine who is my age, and he finally moved out of his parents' house at, I think he was 34 at the time, 35, something like that. And he had lived at his parents' house the entire time. And what kept him and what created that anxiety was his unwillingness to fail. It wasn't even a fear of failure. It was his unwillingness to fail.
Yeah.
Because he had his hand held for so long.
And I think that's a part of it too, is is, as Z said, helping them with the motivation and feeling, like they can do it. Because me, I was ready to move out of my parents' house, as I told them since I was 5. At 18, I'm gonna move out, and I did. And then I moved back in, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But and I brought Z with me. It was great. But there's little things I think that you can do to help motivate them and see that it's not scary. It's not gonna be scary, and that could be as easy as them having to buy their own groceries. Start off with them, or pitching in for groceries, pitching in with things around the house, saying that they have to have a job because they need to pitch in or do something to pitch in, whether it be mowing the lawn and cleaning and doing all these things. Give them extra chores, make them feel like this is build it up. So and show them how to pay the bills, how you pay rent, show them how you pay for the garbage and the utilities and things like that, and show them it's not so scary. Like, you got to build up that ability to shoo the bird out of the nest. You got to build up those wing muscles, get them out.
One of the things that I've seen people do is, to again echo what you said, Horton, is to, if, let's say for instance, the mother is always doing laundry, don't do laundry for them. Say, it's now your responsibility. You're old enough to do your own laundry. You start doing it. When it comes to dinner, you can have dinner with us one day a week. If this is something that you that you're comfortable with, saying one day a week. Otherwise, you're responsible for your own dinner. And start making them more, or encouraging them. I don't want to say making, but encouraging them to be more independent versus being dependent.
Yes.
Because being dependent on your parents at an older age is not healthy. You know, if you're 25, 26 years old and you're still living at home and you're in college, you know, at least from my personal opinion, I'm okay with that.
I agree, because you're at least doing something to help
Yeah.
better and taking steps forward.
Yep, exactly. But
But
when
there's also
you
that safety net too. Like when
Yep.
me and Horton first met, uh, going through a couple layoffs, and they ended up letting me stay with them
Mhm.
at her house. And it wasn't the most ideal situation. It was a bit embarrassing on my part, but they were a good support net, and we got back on our feet. And
Yep.
And we
now
did
they live
pay
with
rent.
us,
Yeah, and we
Yep.
so
paid rent and
we
things.
return the favor. So yeah, it's a good safety net. But if you rely on that and you stay like years, you're no longer just getting back on your feet. You've landed on your feet and you're staying there.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. All right. So, does anybody have anything else on that? We're still here. Okay, I'll take
Well,
that as a no. Oh wait.
But
I was gonna say we've talked about failure and success. The thing is with success, and this is something we talked about, I think, in a little kind of rehearsal, was that once you do have a success,
That's where I was
like
going
or
next. Yep.
failure.
oh,
Perfect.
was it? Okay,
Okay.
I'll let
Yep.
you take it then.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Uh, Essentially, what it is you can't even enjoy the successes because you dread the next failure.
Yep.
Because you feel like whenever something good happens, something bad is coming right around the corner, and that's something that I mentioned before that I struggle with on a constant basis.
Yeah, it's kind of to that point, you know, what I want to know, you know, and I think something that's an important topic for this is once you've succeeded, once you've gotten to that point of seeing even that little success, where do you go from there? Do you, you know, and obviously there's the idea of dreading that next failure. That's something that I think most people deal with is even if you're the most positive person in the world, it's and that dread is low. We don't necessarily want to. It's not in our nature to want to fail, but it's in our nature to fail. So when you have failed, what do we have to do to kind of build on that and take yourself from this, you know, I have this emotional connection to this failure and move it into I'm learning from that failure and growing from that. So from a more, I guess, professional standpoint, Stacy, if you have any words on that. I'm going to keep throwing
How
it over
do
to you
we?
because I think this is a topic that, because you and I have talked about it, this is a topic that you are very passionate about.
I am. So what is your question?
So once you've succeeded, kind of where do you go from there? So you're not dwelling on it being a failure. How do you make that something where you are making it into a positive? I guess that makes sense. Like
So when
either
you have
success or failure. Does that make
got
sense,
it.
or am I confusing you?
So I, no, I think so. Well, my mind is racing a million miles because I'm like excited about talking about
Hmm.
fear of succeeding.
Hmm.
Because I love that topic. And here's my cat again, Arlo. Arlo's no, don't step on the keyboard. Oh my gosh.
Love that kitty.
He's so sweet.
You can sit here. Yes, he's excited about this topic too. He and I talk a lot about that. So how do you stand strong in success once you've failed so many times?
Yeah.
Kind of. Is that what you're asking,
Yep.
Mandy? Or how do you appreciate it without being afraid of
Of
falling
failing.
back down again?
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah. Gratitude. And truly being present in the moment and learning how to utilize the rainbow of words we have and recognize the different emotions that you're feeling and the different physical sensations that you're experiencing as well. So when you get excited about something, right? Your mind races, your hands sometimes get tingly, some people get sweaty. Your heart races. There's all these different things. We're super happy. I know for me, my cheeks hurt because I smile so much. I'm like, oh my God, they hurt. Right. And then I end up getting headaches because I smiled too much. And I'm just too happy, too much dopamine and serotonin being released. Something. But really, truly, how do you sit in that moment of success and appreciate it? Be present. Pay attention to how you feel. Take some deep breaths and just be present. Um,
That's
if
so hard to
we
do
hold,
for me. I would love
yeah,
some free therapy right now. How do you
yeah.
stop that outside noise from coming in and just be in the moment? How do you do that?
How do you do that? So, practice. And then when you find yourself veering off, bring yourself back. So, you know what? Hold on. I don't want to miss out on this. It's that self talk. It's being good friends with yourself in your head. Remember that person in there, they're not going anywhere. That's you. It's the longest relationship you've had, and it's the closest relationship you'll ever have. Right? So make it a good one. Why not? Um, so chatting with the person that's in your own mind and saying, "Hold on, you're going somewhere else. Come back here. Be present." Just having that good self talk and practicing it over and over, just like riding a bike, right? I don't know any of us that got on a bike right away and rode away. I mean, somebody might. Um, Z, you said you were very talented and gifted. You might
No, my first time on a
have.
bike, I ran into a mailbox and scraped the heck out of my face. Thus the mask.
Excellent.
No, I'm just kidding. Not the mask.
But you got back on the bike, right?
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Got back on, right? And for anyone who doesn't maybe ride a bike, we don't all remember walking or running maybe necessarily the first time, but there's different things that we've tried that we've not succeeded at, and we keep trying again and we try again because we enjoy it. There's something about it. Allowing yourself to enjoy how good it feels when you succeed and just being present in that moment. It's not much different. I wish I could say something really clever and witty, but when you break it down to the foundation of everything and you strip back all the cool, fun psychological stuff, it just comes down to being present and appreciating where you're at. I wish I had something more clever, but that's the bare
Uh,
bones.
Darkness. I actually can comment on that. I actually do have a twin, identical. Uh, his face is blue, mine's green. Uh, but yeah, identical twin. And so I guess you could say we've known each other as long as we've known ourselves. The thing is we've grown apart as a person and people. It's one of those things that we were talked about previously, where whenever there's toxic family, no matter how close they are, sometimes you have to distance yourself from them. That was unfortunately one of the situations in my life. My identical twin, it's my other half. Being spending most of my life with this person from day one. Uh, I love him with all my heart, and I still do. And I didn't cut him out of my life like most negative people, but I have put out arm's distance, and I don't get too close to get involved in his stuff and his drama and stuff like that. I love him with all my heart, and I hope one day we can be close again. But sometimes you have to do what's healthy, even if it hurts.
Yep. Because to
It's true.
in the end, it's not about how somebody else makes you feel. It's not about how, the things going on around you. It's about what's in your head and you appreciating yourself
Yep.
and being able to enjoy those successes and learn from those failures. Because without you, as Stacey, as you put it, making a friend with the person in your head, without that, you're always going to dwell on those fears. You're never going to be able to appreciate those successes because you're always fighting against yourself. You're always fighting against that depression or that anxiety or whatever it might be in your head. You have to become friends with that person and talk that person down off a ledge sometimes.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And it's hard to do. It is. I mean, becoming
It
friends with yourself, it's difficult because you hear the noise, right? And the voids of past mistakes become really, really loud.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
Um,
and just like your friends, sometimes you have to tell them to be quiet. You're gonna
Yep.
enjoy this. You have to
Yep.
be, strong-willed.
absolutely. And there's so many different ways. One way I recently was working with somebody about it was through art therapy. We drew, well, I didn't. This individual drew a gorgeous tree, and it was something that kind of just came to me intuitively. I was like, they love art, and I said, what if we draw a tree? And the root system is everything you grew up. It's all the turmoil and successes that's in here and in your soul, right? The stuff that people don't see, that maybe you speak of, but maybe you don't. And so they drew that, and it was beautiful. And then the trunk itself consisted of we drew a hole in it, and that's the gift, right? And they're still working on figuring that out. Um, but then the foliage of the tree was what everybody sees, right? And it was really just exquisite. And this is how this individual processed becoming friends with the person in their head. And they were stuck at something that happened in their childhood, and um and whatnot. So there's many ways to express the pain and hurt that you experience growing up. Celebrate the successes of things. Sometimes the bad stuff is the stuff that made us stronger. I often say I don't come from a background of rainbows and unicorns. My background got me where I am, and there's a reason I'm able to understand a lot of different things. Um, and I celebrate that because I love who I am today, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Right? I'm best friends with the girl in my head. She's pretty all right. A little bit of there's some clown music that goes on often, but
And
Speaking
I
of
like it.
celebrating, since we're getting a little on the heavier side, I figured
Yeah.
I'd lighten the mood just for a second. Agent Orange, what is a success that you've celebrated recently that you've really are proud of that you'd like to share?
do you have something specific in mind? The
I,
way, okay,
I'm not stalking you. I don't know what you're doing in your spare time. I was just
okay.
curious if you've had any big successes that you'd like to share that we could look on the positive sides of things.
So honestly, like, and I've talked about this on my stream. We're in the process of looking for a house, and this is kind of, I guess I could say this is a very different take on what I consider to be a success versus a failure. You know, I purchased a home before, in past relationship and everything. Purchased a home. Um, we're in the process of doing the same thing, and we've actually lost out on multiple houses, but I've learned so much from what I'm looking for, what other people, the overall process of buying a house has been something that I've really learned a ton about over the last couple of months. So honestly, I would say that would be something that would be a huge success for me. Is something, again, it's a very different take. It's taking those failures and looking at least attempting to look at the positive side. I mean, this last house that we lost out on, it beat me down pretty good. But in the end, I was able to look at it and say, okay, what did I learn from it? Why did we lose out on it? Is there anything I could have done? No. Okay. Well, now let's move on to the next thing. And emotionally and mentally, it actually helped me quite a bit. And according to my dad,
That's awesome.
they're not kicking us out now. For now.
Well, that's good news. That's good.
Randy, I know you and
Yeah.
I were chatting earlier today, and you had shared something with me with regard to work and whatnot. And I remember, sorry, my cat's hitting the mic. My response to you was, that sucks.
Yep.
Right. And when you had shared with me kind of all the different things that you had going on, I just kind of met you where you were at and honored it. And I want to say, just from this afternoon when we chat to just now hearing what you just said, that's awesome. Congratulations on kind of letting everything seep in and just being where you are with it now.
Yeah, we've had quite a bit going on, with our personal life over the last couple months. So it's been a struggle. But this whole process, not just of the house, but all the personal things, I've done my best to try to stay as positive as possible and take all of those failures and all those things that I've dealt with, whether it's personal failure or things out of my control, and just try to stay as positive as possible. Because I know that as soon as I allow that negativity to seep into my head, it's just going to manifest itself, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And I think that's where it comes into the understanding of being friends with that person in your head, because that person in your head is the one that's going to help decide what you do externally. And if you're not friends with that person and you allow that person to do whatever they want to do, it's going to go very dark for you very quick, or could go very dark very quick. And that's something that you want to keep from happening. So again, going back to the theme that has been, throughout the whole thing, this whole podcast is really understanding, taking those failures and doing everything that you can to make it a positive, to learn from it, to just not allow it to take over your head. Because that's where you get into a danger zone of just stuff.
And you have to remind yourself there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Even if you can't see it right now, just turn the next corner. That's all you got to do is just turn the next corner.
And
it sounds so difficult to do, but it's easy.
Does.
Oh yeah.
Just got to take that first step.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's us versus us, right? It's us versus that person in the head. And as Horton and Z, as you guys both mentioned early on, it's just the initial step, no matter how big, how small, it's just making that initial effort.
Yep. And going back to something that Huster had said about, fearing success, the idea of self-sabotaging, I think the making friends with that person in your head will help you self-sabotage less, hopefully. Because you're making that friend, and you're saying, I know myself better than anybody else. Doesn't matter if you have a significant other or whatever. I always joke that I know Warrior better than she knows herself. But in reality, if she becomes friends with that person internally, she will and has known herself better. Because you know what you're going through. I only see the external stuff.
But it's always good sometimes to have an external voice as well to kind of bring you back and put your thoughts into perspective too. Because sometimes you can get me, and it brings yourself into this tiny little square where it's all about you, and you circle and, keep fighting with yourself. And you got to just be like, sometimes you need somebody to just take you out of that and be like, well, what if you think about it this way? Or maybe, and it's like, oh yeah, it's not, I'm okay. Huh. Like,
Yep, and that's
take it out of your own mind. Sometimes it's good and healthy.
Yep, and that's the thing, is you cannot rely just on the external, and you can't rely just on the internal. There has to be that combination of the two, and that's why it's so important not only to be friends with your internal person, but find the right type of person to be able to talk to something, to talk about these things with. We brought up earlier.
Which is why I'm glad we met you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, because it's been a great opportunity to be able to just, bounce these ideas off of other people and actually have real conversations with people who get it. And you guys all know, I don't look for somebody. If I look for somebody to talk to, it's not somebody who's just going to agree with me. It's going to be somebody who's going to respect me and tell me what I need to know and not what I want to know. Like,
you got to avoid that whole echo chamber, because if you just hear what they want you to hear and you're not hearing what you need to hear, you're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. Yep.
It reminds me of a lot of conversations, Randy, that you and I had that, they weren't always fun conversations to have, but they were ones that,
we had to have them.
Either one of us might have been delivering to the other. Hey man, here's where I see you're at.
Yep.
Yes, by the way. Right. And I think that's something that really bonded you and I together, is that we could appreciate and respect the honesty, the constructive criticism, right? That the other could offer. And it's not because you don't care about the person, it's because you do.
Yep. And that's
right? And there's a difference between criticism and constructive criticism.
I was gonna say that's the important word, is the constructive criticism.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to be constructive. If you're going to help another person, you're going to, help guide them through whatever it is. It's constructive criticism, not just criticizing what they're doing. Because at that point, you're not making it any better. You're just making them a million times worse. Yep. Because they're already in their own head.
Oh, exactly.
And that translates over into your job as well. If you go up to your boss or supervisor or manager and you tell them a problem, like, hey, the machine's broken in the break room, they're going to be like, oh, great, he's just always the bearer of bad news. But if you go, hey, the machine's broken in the break room, but I think we can fix it if we do this, now all of a sudden you're
Yep.
a problem solver. So it's the same thing with personal relationships. If you want to point out an issue somebody's having or a problem, also point out the solution, because they're not
Yep.
going to grow from knowing the problem. They're going to grow from knowing that solution.
Absolutely.
I had an old boss who refused to talk to us about a problem if we did not have a solution, or at least somewhat of a plan of saying how can we get this a solution for this.
That
You
was
would
not
walk.
me.
No, that wasn't you. It wasn't you. But you would walk into his office and you know, if you said, "Hey, I have a problem," he said, "Do you have a solution?" And if you said no, then he would have you walk out. He would say, you know, find a solution for it, and then we'll talk. Because you can't rely. I don't mind going in, even if it's not a great solution. But going in having something means that you put the work in to find a solution for whatever the problem was. Once you come to me, then we can really hash out what needs to be done to properly solve whatever the problem is. You know, but to just say I have a problem, that just, like Z, like you said, I mean, you're at that point you're literally just walking in and complaining. You're not giving me any actual constructive feedback on whatever the problem might be.
And another thing to backtrack towards, like, just having somebody to talk to kind of get you out of that echo chamber and that vacuum. Witchy Pixie brought up your Discord, and that's a good example of looking for somebody to talk to, because in this day and age when we're all stuck at home in isolation or however it may be, it's getting harder and harder to go out and talk to people or have a beer with the guys and just kind of blow off steam, or somebody to talk to in person.
Yep.
We have the internet. This is the data age. We can go online and, like with Horton's community and Agent Orange community, there are people who I've formed real connections with over the last 6 months that we've been streaming, and the 4 or 5 months you've been streaming.
Yep.
And they are real relationships. And being able to talk to Agent Orange and Stacy, we've been able to grow as people. So you can go and meet people online. You don't have to meet in person. And Witchy, like you said, you looked up the Discord. If you ever need somebody to talk to or someone to just cheer on your successes, hop in that Discord, because no matter what, somebody there is going to be like, "Hey, we love it. I can't wait to hear more." Or, "Hey, you got pictures? I can't wait to see what your clean living room looks like," or whatever
Yep.
it may be.
Yep.
Absolutely. The right group of individuals will
Exactly.
support, right? And if they're not the right ones, keep looking.
Eventually you'll find it. It's kind of like a therapist. You know, the first couple therapists that you find, if you go looking for one, they might not be the right person. I've been through a ton of them. But eventually you'll find the right person that you connect with and that you're able to have an actual conversation with. You know, Stacey and you and I talked about this earlier, where you might have a therapist who acts as though they're your friend. I mean, you're there having a conversation with them, but they're not doing the whole, well, tell me how you feel. Because if I am talking to a therapist and the therapist says, well, tell me how you feel, I'm immediately turned off by that. Because now I feel like we're not having a conversation. You're giving me therapy. I'm looking for somebody to talk to. But then other people, you know, one of you guys might, you know, or somebody in chat might be the type of person that legitimately just wants to go and talk to a therapist. And that's perfect for them and great. You know, I've been through, you know, therapists who don't understand the issues I was going through. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to move on to somebody else. Had nothing to do with you. It's just we didn't connect. You know, and eventually you'll find the right person.
Yeah. And it's important to know that you might meet a therapist and they might not be a good match. And for therapists, you know, whenever I meet somebody that I'm going to work with that's new, I'm like, hey, how about we do a meet and greet? You meet me, see if you like who I am, and I'll meet you and see if I think I can help you. And if I can't, I'm going to help work to find someone who can, because I'm not the be all end all for everybody. Right. And Randy, like you're saying, you know, for you, you know, tell me how that feels. Doesn't sound good, but somebody else might need to be asked that. Right. And having a therapist should never be cookie cutters. Right. My professional opinion, we're not cookie cutters. It's really important for us to be kind of like chameleons and know that each person's different. I mean, I have different conversations. I work 6 days a week. I have 6 different days, hours. Each hour is different. I'm not always the same. I mean, I'm changing and again meeting each individual exactly where they're at. And I'm lucky I work at home alone, so I can't say it has to be interesting for anyone in my house because nobody's here with me.
Mhm.
And I would have to put a diffuser or a noise machine out there anyway. They can't hear me. But anyway, I wanted to bring something up that somebody asked in chat, and I thought it was a really good question. Whiplash asked a question to each of us: how do we deal with our own personal failures? So I'm going to toss it out to you guys.
With that, I can go first. I think for me, I deal with my own personal failures by doing my best to look at the positive and looking at like I've echoed throughout the entire stream, is looking at it in a way where what can I learn from this? What can I, even if it's a big mistake, or even a tiny mistake. I walked down the in the living room and I stubbed my toe on something. What am I going to learn from that? Because without doing that, I know personally I'm going to keep making the same mistake over and over and over. And it's going to spiral me into something that's not going to work well for my mental state. So I think that's my biggest thing, is just looking at the positive side and trying to say, okay, what am I going to do differently next time?
I know for me, when if I have a failure, depending on how big it is or whatever, I like to take a day. I'm like, all right, this sucked. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna watch TV. I'm gonna play with the kids. I'm gonna have as relaxing as day as I possibly can. But tomorrow, I'm gonna get my ass up because I learned something. And as you said, tomorrow I'm gonna my ass up. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna recuperate. Think about all the good things. Keep that positivity going, and then go kick butt. Like, But if it's big enough, I will sit down and just be mopey. I just need
Yep.
a mopey day. I'm gonna have my mopey day.
That's kind of what I was going to get at. Is it depends on the level of failure. Like, if I drop a box I'm carrying and break some of the stuff inside, I'm going to be a little upset. I'm going to pick up the pieces and I may hop on Amazon and order a new whatever it broke, uh, and just kind of move on. It won't affect me too much. But big failures, like a good example is a couple months ago, or I guess a year ago, I didn't pass my advancement exam, and it's one that I had been waiting for a long time, and it was really just a downer. uh, for me, video games are my outlet. So I came home that after work that day, I had a really nice dinner. Like, Horton here made something special just for me. It was one of my favorite dishes, and she's like, "You just relax. I got the kids, and I just played Star Citizen." And I went evil. Normally, I don't do the whole pirate route, and I don't want to go to jail, but I went evil, and I still took my frustrations out in some video games and had a little bit of fun. And I played with some friends, and just being social and doing something that got my mind off of it. When I woke up the next day, yeah, I still thought about, man, I still didn't make that test, but it was no longer that still initial hit that got me. That initial hit was gone. Now I was dealing with just like, okay, well, now on to the next day.
Yep.
Sometimes you just have to blank your mind out with some TV or video games or whatever your hobbies are to get that initial hit, that initial sting to go away, and then you can deal with it.
JC, what about you?
And for me,
I was going to let you go from
Randy,
that one.
you've experienced a lot with me, and um gosh, I mean, I say I don't think there's any blanket way I necessarily deal with failures, other than I am the type of individual, and not everybody's like this, and I don't recommend it for everybody. um I am the type of individual that I walk right into the center of the fire and I say, make it hotter, and I deal with it. Um, but I am that kind of personality too.
Yep.
And I take that. So um, there are other times I will step away from whatever it is I failed at, and I'll sit back and I'll be like, well, balls, that didn't go as planned. Right. Um, my desk, and guys, I referred to her as the Corona Queen. And I was telling Randy the story earlier. I had a hard time finding a desk. It was like trying to find toilet paper. And anyway, found it. Some things weren't machined right. My husband had to cut it and drill new holes in it. And I said to him, I said, I'm going to walk away. Don't tell me what you're doing. I took a nap because it's all I could do at that point because I was really upset with just what employee couldn't machine it right. And then I thought, no, maybe that employee's having a bad day. Maybe they just were in their own zone, whatever. So I did my best not to point blame at anyone. And then I came back and I cracked a joke about it. I sometimes deal with my failures as cracking jokes. And I go, well, looks like I got a custom built desk after all. So my husband had offered to build one for me, and we joked about it. And there's been more goofy things that have gone on with it, and it sure is custom at this point.
The
But
one
I love
downside to
it.
this mask is I can't show facial expression, but I
Yeah.
was laughing pretty good at that. I like that.
Yeah. So again, just kind of giving real life, and I guess Randy, you and I were talking about this earlier. As a therapist, sometimes people expect, and this comes from experience, people expect therapists to have it all together, and we wear a cape and we're super we have nothing wrong, right? We can solve all of our problems. No,
You're human.
I'm human just like you guys. The difference might be that I have a whole lot of tricks and things I try, but so do you.
Yep.
We all do. We're all capable of trying different approaches and just whatever works for us. um so yeah, I mean, I approach everything differently, if that helps at all. It just, I meet myself exactly where I'm at. Sometimes I take a nap, sometimes I dive right in.
Yep.
It just depends where I'm at that day. Self-care days, there's days I'm like, you know what, 1 minute at a time.
And
Because
Bubble
that's all I can
bath.
do.
yeah, and
Yeah.
if you take a bubble bath every night to decompress, then that works for you. That works for you. And I think
I'm a grown ass
Or you
man and
deep
I
condition.
love bubble baths.
oh hell
Yep.
yeah, yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I haven't
deep
taken one in
condition
years,
my
though.
hair.
You, Stacey,
Randy,
you
you should take a bath.
yeah, you deep condition your hair anytime we have plans.
All the time we have plans.
All the time. So, but yeah, so Whiplash, I think the important thing is just understanding what works best for you, and dealing with your personal failures. Because as you can see, we all have different ways of decompressing and recognizing what those failures are and learning from them. Sometimes it's just a matter of meeting them head on. Sometimes you learn from them. Sometimes you just completely decompress, ignore them, and then know that, hey, tomorrow everything's going to be, they might still be there, but at least I've been able to take time to process it. Is it question time? I mean, we can answer some questions. I mean, it's question time throughout the entire podcast, but if you have a question, Virus, go ahead. We have a couple more minutes. Let's see.
I say there's times I vent too. Randy, you've
Oh, yeah.
been on the other end of my phone call
Venting is
sometimes.
And
Great.
both ways. Yep.
Yeah. There's times I've made an entire paragraph out of the F word.
Oh,
And no
yeah.
other words.
Or
Just that
or
one.
or the S word, staycation.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that
Oh my
word!
God.
Don't you say that?
Was it
Staycation
my
triggers
favorite?
you?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It's like the word
Ooh.
moist.
thing.
Oh, okay. I
Yes.
feel for you now. Okay,
You are
I get
making
it.
enemies, Randy.
No, it's so funny
know.
because like when my mom has like one of those like decompression moments, and I love it because it's kind of her venting. Is she'll come home from whatever she's doing. Usually, if like she's on a trip, she'll come home, and before she can like be at home, and like I purposely leave like dirty dishes in the sink to make her feel wanted because she does this 2-hour thing, and you cannot talk to her. You give her the initial, "Oh my God, we're so back. You're home. You're so glad you're home," and then you leave her alone for 2 hours because she runs around the house cleaning and venting about everything that is not where it should be,
Mhm.
or just vents about her trip. If she's went to visit somebody, she cleans and like she thinks you're listening. I don't know if she does. I don't know, but it makes her feel better that someone's there listening to her. Just fucking son of a bitch, and she'll just clean the whole house grumbling to herself, and then she'll get done and she'll be happy as can be, and it's great.
I remember Horton handed me a plate of leftovers so that way I could finish it off and there'd be some dishes. So when she arrived, there'd be something there.
Yeah. Because if she doesn't have anything clean, then you're screwed. Like,
Oh
she
boy.
needs to have that venting time, and it makes her feel better.
Yeah, she just got to let it out. At
Yep.
that
And-
point, mom needs, spectators, right? She doesn't need a teammate, doesn't need a cheerleader,
Nope.
just spectators in the stand.
Yeah, exactly. Just knowing someone's there means everything to her. Just, don't talk to her. Yes,
Well,
that's
and-
your mistake.
Yep. And
Just watch me go.
going on that topic, Stacey, you and I, we used to spend, driving into work. We used to spend probably a good hour just talking to each other about our problems and having that therapy session from both of us. And
Yep.
that was,
And then I get McDonald's.
and then you get McDonald's, at 7:00 in the morning. But it was a really good decompression time for both of us to be able to just talk about things that we've done, things that we failed at, and just have that conversation and bounce those ideas off of each other.
Absolutely. I think, for sure having someone that you can talk to. And if that person's not available, definitely relying on yourself to talk things out or, not everybody does well with journaling. And I'm not saying journal. Sometimes it's just a matter of writing an idea down, crumbling it up, throwing it away. Right.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, that's what they always say. If you're gonna write if you're gonna write an angry letter, keep it for a day or two.
Yeah.
Before you send it.
Yep.
Yep.
Just
Oh,
make
we're
sure
not supposed to send those?
you can still send it if you really need to.
Yeah, you can if you really feel.
Just-
but don't do it in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Oops.
And do not send them to Horton because she knows where you sleep. So kind of to close this all out. So first of all, thank you guys for everything. We're gonna have one more question and we're gonna dip for the night. I'm probably gonna jump into playing some Minecraft or something a little bit slower. You guys are welcome to hang out if you want to. But again, thank you guys for hanging out. This is the third episode and I absolutely love doing this type of thing. Just having these conversations, and getting different viewpoints of everything. So thank you, chat. Horton, Z, thank you guys both for hanging out with us.
Thank you. This is
Thank you for having us. This
Thank
is the
you.
best free therapy I've ever gotten.
Yeah,
Right.
see? Yeah, there you go.
Yay!
Right.
So the last question is from Virus in chat. And I think it's a really good one. So he says, basically sometimes failure for him snowballs. So what are some ways that you can keep the snowballing from happening? So whether it's, just different ways to do it or different strategies or something, like what have you guys seen, Stacey, from your professional standpoint, and then also from the two of you as well, what are some things that you've done to keep that from snowballing?
Z and Horton, I'll let you guys go first.
Doing one little thing, we've mentioned it before, just picking up 2 pieces of clothing and tossing it in the washing machine. You don't even have to start the washing machine, just one small thing. And the thing is let's say you're dreading moving on or trying to be productive. You also be careful that you're not doing that whole positive procrastination where you're doing other things other than the thing that you're supposed to be doing. But if you need to step away from something, just do a small thing. Because those little small things will stop that spiral and you'll start spiraling upwards instead of downwards.
Yeah. I get in those modes where and then it, as you said, it ruins like your mood. So like I will sometimes will just, even if I do that one thing, I'm still in like a bad mood that day. And I understand that I'm going to be in a bad mood. Like I will try to stop the cycle of my thinking and I'll tell myself, no, 15 seconds. This is what I do. Whenever I feel like that, I have to sit down and do the 15 seconds of positivity. And anytime a bad thought jumps in my brain, I start all over. I want a full 15 seconds of just absolute positivity. And it's mostly just things I'm thankful for. I have to remind myself, like, these things are happening, but I'm thankful for the family I have. I'm, thankful for all the opportunities. And it's just basically 15 seconds of me being thankful for what I have. And then I sit down and let myself have time and move forward. And I take it, whatever I feel after my 15 seconds, I do. Whatever I need to do or to feel better, I do that. But I take the 15 seconds just to be thankful for what I have.
And she's thankful
Yep.
for me. I'm the greatest thing ever.
We know, Z.
I mean,
We
look
know.
at his face. Isn't it lovely?
Aw, I love those eyes.
It's whatever I want it to be.
Oh, so I'm going to give two answers. I'm going to give mine and then therapeutic one. Horton, I echo what you're saying. Z, same thing. I echo both of you. Especially the 15 seconds. I will do what's called a grounding technique, and it is it's all your senses. So it's what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, and what you feel. And you start out with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So 5 things you can hear, 4 things you can see, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you taste, 1 thing you feel, or you can invert it. You can do it however you want, but it's your 5 senses. And it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? I'll do a grounding technique based off things I'm grateful for. So for me, I'm grateful I can hear, and then I will list however many, wherever I have that, right? I'm grateful I can see, and I break it down. I'm grateful I can smell, taste, and feel. So I do that, and it's a proven study, the grounding technique. So similar, little different, but similar. And truly, I do the very, very basic stuff, to show gratitude, right? In my line of work, I hear a lot of stories. And there are days I walk away going, whoa, my worst day is still a good day. And that's hard,
Oh yeah.
right? That's really hard when you hear some of these stories. They're heartbreaking, and how do you not take it in? Gratitude. And
You
and I
brought up
can't.
that grounding technique, by the way, in the green room, and I just want to say I was trying that since the last time we talked, and it actually does work. So I just wanted to vouch for you on that. That's actually great.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Thank you. And I appreciate that, because often, I'll give suggestions or just toss an idea out. Um, and I don't always get to hear back if it worked or not. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And make variations of it too. Take what Horton says she does, and maybe what I say I try, and make something of your own, right? Create. I always tell the patients I work with, create a treasure chest of tools that make you feel better. And sometimes we have to write it down, but sometimes we just can visualize it, or sometimes it's just there. And you just know to go to things. You have your tried and true tool that works, and then sometimes it doesn't work, so you move to something else. Don't put the pressure on yourself to have the same thing work every time. So that's my personal, professional. Um, they're the same, really. But to kind of summarize, how to stop living in fear: set goals, just like these guys have said. Set small goals. Do some visualization work. Visualize what you want your outcome to be. What does it look like? What's the storyline in my head? All right, and then communicate that out. How is that reality? Right. Do some research on what it is you're trying to achieve, and again, do things like playing, like I said earlier, playing a video game, or just do something where there's immediate success to whatever your attempt is, and it's early on success, right? Um, I remember I had a disagreement with somebody once, and I had excused myself from the situation because they were just a very negative individual. And I had stepped away, and I started playing a video game that I was pretty good at. And somebody I was with came in, they checked on me, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm playing a video game. And I had picked one that I was really good at because it felt good. And I just didn't like being around the negativity of the other person. I didn't not like that person. I just didn't want to be around that negativity. Right. So instead of engaging in a disagreement, I just excused myself and did something that made me feel good. Right. Because it made me feel anxious, all that negativity. So for whatever that's worth, and if that helps.
Helps. All right. Well, thank you guys. Again, thank you guys for coming to hang out with us. Thank you, Horton and Z, for coming on. We will definitely be doing this again. Let's see, our next one, the 28th. Thank you, Ward. It's September 28th. We haven't decided on a specific topic yet, but I have a few in mind. So we will let you guys know as soon as we can. Just a reminder, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if you want to come in, if you have questions, make sure you hop in. Happy to talk about it. And then take a look at our Discord as well. We have a couple sections in there with some pretty good resources and kind of an area to talk. I'm myself, Warrior. We're always happy to listen. If you guys are in Z and Horton's community, I'm sure they're always happy to work with you guys and talk to you and anything. Their community is probably one of the most supportive that I've seen in a very long time. I've been around Twitch for years, and I've seen some supportive communities, but you guys are awesome. And what you built is absolutely awesome.
That means a lot. And you guys are never alone, and that's the big one. Is
Yep.
anyone that ever feels alone, especially in these times, just remember you're never alone.
Yep.
You always have people like Agent Orange and us that are here for you, no matter what.
I echo that.
And for whatever it's worth, Z and Horton, the support that you guys have shown, and just as a clinician, I'll speak as one. Just hearing how supportive you are, and kind of the word choices you've had and whatnot, I would say to chat, by all means, reach out to them if you need something, you need some support or anything. Get some good, solid people around you guys. And if I can ever be of any service, these guys all know how to find me. I'm not on as much, but everyone knows how to find me if need be.
If you guys really need it, you can always reach out to me and I can get you in contact. All right.
And
Hey, guys.
Warrior also put a good place to get help too if you need it. So.
Yep. Yeah. To Write Love on Her Arms is a fantastic location. They have a great just resource page. And then so if you do need help or you need somebody to talk to and one of us aren't available, or you want more of that kind of professional element, definitely reach out to them.